What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and it is Project Black Flag time. We have received the official playtest packet number 2. I have not taken a look at it yet. We're going to dive into it first here on the stream. It is not on the Kobold Press website. If you signed up for the playtests, it's available via that blog or that email. So I just went to my email and downloaded it. There is also a feedback survey that is open until the 3rd of April as of me talking about it here. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm very excited because we are going to be getting the first 8 levels of the classes. So we're going to be getting the wizard and the fighter. So the first 8 classes of both of those. So let's go ahead and scroll down. Okay. Basically, we're going to just dive. Here's the link to the survey right there. I don't know if you guys can actually see this, so we'll go ahead and zoom in. And it says luck. Okay, player options, luck. Every PC has a special resource called luck, which can be used to influence the result of an ability check, attack roll, or save you make. Spending luck points. A PC with luck points can spend them as a 1-for-1 bonus to any d20 roll they make. For example, if you have 4 luck points and roll a 13 on the die, you could choose to spend 2 luck points, reducing your luck point total to 2, and make your result a 15. You can choose to spend your luck points in this way after you make a roll, but before the GM declares whether the roll succeeded or failed. Luck points can't be spent in this way to offset the effects of rolling a natural 1, and they can't be used to create the effects of a natural 20. Okay, so taking that at face value right there, I'm wondering how this is determined. I'm wondering if this is like a counteraction to things like inspiration, right? Being the concept of you can basically just have rerolls. This is going in the favor of seeming like a more mechanical addition here. So I'm not sure how I feel about this. It's another resource to track, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You do have to determine how many luck points you wish to use before you make a roll. So, after you make a roll, but before it's a success or failure. So you could roll and find out, as it said, I rolled a 13. I think maybe 15 is the target that I'm shooting for. I'm going to spend 2 luck points to take that 13 and turn it into a 15. Not an unreasonable mechanic. I'm wondering if there are different classes or feats or features that would allow you to, or talents, I should say, that allow you to increase the luck points you gain, or how fast you gain them, or how many you can have. I also like that it says it can't be used to offset a natural 1 or a natural 20. So, for example, those will still typically be either an automatic failure or automatic success, depending on how natural 1s and natural 20s are incorporated in Project Black Flag. Okay. Alternatively, immediately after you make an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can spend 3 luck points to reroll. Here it is. To reroll a d20 using that roll. Again, you can choose to spend luck points in this way after you make the roll, but before the GM decides success or failure. So it is technically still usable for a reroll. It's just it has multiple uses. And this is actually something that I've kind of been using for years in my own home game. We have it was a Kickstarter for many years ago, and it was in one of my I think my DM accessory videos from years ago, top 10 video. Was I use a deck of inspiration cards. It's 52 cards, and each one, it's basically like a traditional 52 card deck. And partly I started off with it because it was a means for players to track inspiration physically by having a physical playing card. And if you had that card, you could turn it in for inspiration. But the cards had 3 mechanics on them. They had a numerical value, which was either +1, +2, or +3. You could utilize one of the cards to just, hey, if you had a +2 card, you could say, I just want to spend it like this and use it as a +2. You could use it as a reroll for traditional inspiration, just turn it in to reroll a die. And then each one of the cards had a unique mechanic on it that you could just use that mechanic for whatever it happened to be. So I like this is a concept where basically you're gaining these points. Expending 3 basically gives you the traditional inspiration. Otherwise, you could spend them in different ways. So here we have gaining luck points. When you first create your character, you start with 0 luck points. Over the course of your adventures, you gain them in the following ways. Once per turn, when you fail an attack roll or saving throw, you gain 1 luck point. The GM can choose to award 1 luck point to a character, typically as a reward for coming up with a clever idea, demonstrating excellent role playing, or pursuing an interest rather than optimal choice. Luck points can be awarded to a party for surviving difficult encounters or achieving story goals set by the GM. So it seems as though luck points are functioning similar to inspiration. You do get one when you fail an attack roll or save. This sounds like the kind of heroic inspiration or one of the inspiration options we had seen in 1D&D. They've gone away from that and yet, taken it away as of the cleric and druid unearthed arcana, or sorry, the paladin and druid unearthed arcana. I personally actually liked the concept of rolling a natural 1 gave you inspiration. This is a little bit different. This is whenever you fail an attack roll or saving throw. That would potentially be a lot more frequently than, for example, just rolling a natural 1. Now, I realize they probably wanted to do something different to distance themselves from Dungeons and Dragons or 1D&D, but I've played with some people that have some notoriously pretty bad rolls to have whenever you fail an attack roll or save, but I guess ultimately you'd be able to counter that at a point by having so many luck points saved up. It also does not appear, as from what we've read so far, that there is a limit to how many luck points you can have. You can award them for story goals, clever ideas. I mean, more than likely, you're probably going to get luck points for when you make the DM laugh with a silly joke or a pun. That seems to be when inspiration seems to often be rewarded as well. And then losing luck points, a PC... Oh, here it is. Can only have a maximum of 5. So I spoke too soon. 5 at one time. If a PC has 5 luck points and when gaining 6 luck point, they must immediately roll a d4 and reset their luck point to the die result. Ooh, that's interesting. So if you have 5 and you would get 6, it's kind of interesting because if you fail an attack roll or saving throw, then you have to re-roll or roll a d4 to set it to that. So you could potentially go from 5 luck points down to 1. PC Wisdom, the cap on luck points is meant to encourage players to regularly spend their luck instead of hoarding it. Make sure to use it often so you don't risk losing it. So that's the concept, right? This was similar to what we saw with the inspiration in 1D&D, which is at the end of a long rest, if you expend it, if you don't expend it, you lose it. So that was kind of a mechanic to force you to want to spend it rather than just hoarding it, which again is a thing we see constantly in both video games and other TTRPGs, where as you build resources, potions, or other things, you just hang on to them and don't get rid of them because you're like, well, maybe one time I'll need it, and then you just never end up using it and just have it all the way to the end. It says, behind the curtain, if possible, make sure to actually give this system a try at your game table before providing playtest feedback. We had several internal playtesters who thought the system looked too clunky and difficult to manage on paper, but found it very fast-paced and easy to use when they actually got a chance to play with it. We're eager to hear if you end up having the same experience. The luck system is intended to completely replace 5e's inspiration mechanic. One of our goals with the luck system is to add a fail-forward reward component to minimize the sting of failure, particularly in combat. There's nothing worse than feeling like your turn is wasted due to sting of bad rolls. So that was kind of the concept that we were talking about, right? This is the fail-forward mechanic. This is, if you fail, you can still kind of succeed in that you could get luck points. And I do actually recognize, and I appreciate this behind the curtain piece, which is like, because the first thing I said is it was managing another currency, and it seems kind of clunky. But according to what they're saying here, the playtesters that thought it was clunky when they actually got a chance to demo it for real, they found it fast-paced and quick. I'd be willing to give this a try in my 5e campaigns. It doesn't seem too crazy to me. And then again, it would just, obviously, if you're playing with certain different characters or races, you'd have to kind of build around it. For example, like, if you're using like the 1D&D human, for example, right, they get a inspiration point or a luck point or whatever they call it, whenever they, so if you had the lucky feat, would that just be 3 points right out the gate every day? Things to think about, but I think you could test it even if you weren't playing in purely Project Black Flag. Like I said, I'd be willing to give it a shot. I also wouldn't mind a mechanic of, if you had 5 points, you could give it to somebody else, rather than just this reset mechanic. It is a little chaotic though, and I kind of like the chaos of it. So, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Let's dive into classes now. Character classes. So, elements of a class. Progression table shows what features you get. We have the levels, proficiency bonus. It's pretty much going to be the same. Hit points, hit die, proficiencies. All right. Fighter. D10 hit die, key ability, strength or dex, proficiencies, con, and strength/dex. So you get 3 proficiencies as a fighter. Equipment, all armor types, all weapon types. Wizards, D6, intelligence, key ability, saving throws, intelligence, wisdom, and no proficiencies of any kind in armor or weapons. Starting equipment. Each character class has a list of starting equipment created at level 1. They also get certain features, subclasses, and so on. All right, fighter. We'll dive into this. Fighter, quick build. I'm not that worried about that. We can figure it out on our own. All right, fighter. D10 hit die. 10 plus your con modifier. Your hit points are basically the same thing we have in 5th edition. A D10 or 6 plus your con modifier, so that's half plus 1. Light, medium, heavy armor, shield. Simple and martial weapons. Cons. Oh, okay. You get Constitution, saving throw proficiency, and your choice of strength or dex. Realistically, I'm going to choose dex. I don't know how Black Flag is going to be, but dex saving throws are a lot more common than strength saving throws. And then 2 skills from the list of acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival. Then we have a list of starting equipment here, which doesn't look too different from what we have from the base fighter in 5e. All right, so what do you get for being a fighter in Project Black Flag? Last stand. When you take damage that would reduce your HP to an amount less than half your hit point maximum, rounded down, you can use your reaction to expend 1 or more of your hit dice up to a number equal to your proficiency bonus. Immediately roll any expended hit dice. You regain hit points equal to the total sum of all dice rolled plus your con modifier. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. All right, let's read that again because I read it and it didn't really click with me as I read it. So, when you take damage that would reduce your hit points to an amount less than half your hit point maximum, rounded down. So if I have 10 hit points and I take damage, that would be an amount that would reduce my HP to 5 or less, if I'm understanding that correctly, right? I can use a reaction to expend 1 of my hit dice up to a number equal to my proficiency bonus. So at level 1, that would be up to 2. Again, if I had 2 hit dice, immediately roll any expended hit dice, take that and add your con modifier. So essentially it's a safety mechanism, right? So I'm level 2. Let's make me level 2 and I have 20 hit points, let's say, right? I take damage that would knock me down to 10 or below, again rounded down. I could choose to immediately spend up to 2 hit dice, which are a d10 for a fighter. And if I chose to spend both, I could add my con modifier to both and then heal myself, potentially preventing myself from getting knocked unconscious once per long rest. Okay? Then we have martial action at level 1. Your tactical expertise allows you to act quickly. Choose one of the following. Okay, aim requires wielding a ranged weapon. As a bonus action, you can take the time to increase the effectiveness of your next ranged weapon attack. When you use aim, select a target you can see. If you make a ranged attack against that target before the end of your turn, you double your proficiency bonus for the first attack roll. Makes sense, you're giving up a bonus action to sight your target. Okay, doubling your proficiency bonus, right? Normally your attack roll is your proficiency bonus plus the corresponding modifier, in this instance, more than likely dexterity. So doubling, again, at level 1, this ability would possibly give you you'd have 4 plus whatever your dexterity modifier is to your attack roll, potentially ensuring a hit. You have guard, requires that you're using a shield. As a bonus action, you raise your shield to intercept incoming attacks. When you use guard, select one enemy within 5 feet of you. That target has disadvantage on the first attack roll it makes against you or an ally within 5 feet before the start of your next turn. Or quick strike, which requires wielding 2 weapons. As a bonus action, you can make a weapon attack with a light melee weapon you are holding. You add your ability modifier to the damage of this attack as you would with a normal weapon. If the light weapon has the thrown property, you can choose to throw it for this attack. Okay, so this is, I guess, Oh, there's more. Okay, hang on. And then there's wind up, which requires wielding a two-handed weapon or a versatile weapon with both hands. Okay. As a bonus action, you can take the time to increase the effectiveness of your next weapon attack. When you use wind up, select one target you can see within 5 feet of you. If you make a melee weapon attack against the target before the end of your turn, you can double your proficiency bonus for the first attack roll. So essentially, aim and wind up are similar in that they're letting you basically do that to double your proficiency bonus for the first attack roll. So aim just does that for ranged weapons, and again, it's only the first one. Wind up does it for two-handed weapon or a versatile weapon in 2 hands. You have the shield option to kind of give sort of disadvantage, and you have quick strike, which is your 2-weapon fighting option. I don't love that they don't have a one-handed weapon option. I realize that more often than not, if you're wielding a one-handed weapon, you're more than likely using a shield in the offhand, but they don't have a corollary to something like dueling, which we used to have with the base fighter fighting styles. And I actually would, even though I would more often than not be wearing armor and probably using a sword and a shield as a fighter or somebody else who had access to these things, I would more often choose dueling than anything else. And I don't like that there isn't an option here for that. Personal opinion. All right. So let's check quick strike again. As a bonus action, you can make a weapon attack with a light melee weapon you are holding, giving you a bonus action attack. You add your ability modifier to the damage of this attack as you would with a normal attack. If the light melee weapon has the thrown property, you can throw it. It says, behind the curtain in 5e, a 2-weapon fighter is required to use their attack action before they can use their bonus action to attack with their offhand light melee weapon. The intention of Quick Strike feature is to remove the dependency, allowing a fighter wielding 2 weapons to use their action as they please and still get to make a bonus action attack with their offhand weapon. I also like that it has the opportunity to throw it, and you could use your bonus action offhand attack and then use your action for something else. That is a little more versatility, and I do appreciate that. All right, then we have second level action surge. Probably going to be the same, right? Once per turn, you can activate this feature to gain an additional action on top of your regular action and any possible bonus action, once per short or long rest. So action surge remains the same. Discipline. This is going to be your subclass for being a fighter, right? You get new features at certain levels for that. Let's see. Basic capabilities as a warrior. Choose one of the disciplines from the option presented later in this section. Your fighting discipline grants new features when you reach 3rd and 7th level. Again, reminder, this level only goes to 8. Improvement, you get one at 4th and 8th level, which would be, again, kind of what you're choosing to get. You can increase one ability score of your choice by 1 and choose a talent for which you meet the prerequisites from the martial talent list. Okay, so bump an ability score by 1 and choose a talent from the martial talent list, which we'll find later in this document. I believe there was also one that lets you also bump an ability score as part of the talent list. Notice that they don't get one at 6th here, it's just 4th and 8th, unlike the previous 5th edition fighter. Multi-attack at 5th level, 2 attacks when you hit level 5. Nothing crazy there. Okay, and I think that's it. That's it for the base fighter abilities here. We get, yeah, okay. 2 attacks per action. All right, and then we move into our subclasses, as it were. We have the Spell Blade, which you can see here. This, again, seems to be like the counter to the, or the sort of updated version of the Eldritch Knight fighter. Fighters of the Spellblade discipline do not view fighting with swords or sorcery as separate paths, but rather as a logical marriage of power. Okay, Arcane Spellcasting. When you reach 3rd level, you can enhance your martial prowess with the ability to cast spells. See spell rules for the general rules for spellcasting and the Arcane spell list, which we'll look at later on. You'll learn 2 cantrips from the Arcane spell list. Spellblade progression table shows how many spell slots you have. We can see here, again, spells known and the number of spell slots here. We can see them. Okay. All right. Let's see. Spells known of 1st ring and higher. When you choose this subclass at 3rd level, you know 3 1st ring. I guess that's 1st level, but we're calling them rings. 1st ring arcane circle spells. I guess because it's circle, so rings. 2 of which must be from the Abjuration or Evocation schools, so similar to Eldritch Knight in that aspect. Spell known column of the spell grade progression table shows when you learn more arcane spells of the 1st ring or higher. Spells you learn at 8th level and beyond can be from... the spells you learn at 8th level and beyond can be from any school of magic. Okay? Whenever you gain a level of fighter, you can replace one of your arcane spells with another one from the arcane spell list. Alright, nothing crazy there, and it uses your intelligence modifier for the spellcasting ability. Alright, 3rd level, enchant weapon. Your first step on the path of the Spellblade is learning how to imbue weapons with magical power. If you spend 1 hour of uninterrupted focus in contact with a weapon, which can be during a rest, you can imbue that weapon with a limited form of enchantment. This enchantment lasts until you choose to end it. While you hold it, your enchanted weapon functions as a magic weapon that grants a +1 to attack rolls and damage rolls made with this weapon. It ceases to be magical when it isn't on your person, but otherwise it follows any rules of a typical magic item. So basically you get to enchant it to be a +1 weapon. Okay? An expanded talent list. Whenever you gain a new talent, you can select from the talent from martial or magic. Okay, so that gives you options where you would normally have different kind of, again, remember talents are feat, an analog for feats. So this will let you choose from lists you wouldn't normally be able to. All right. Nothing crazy there, right? We have some spells, and we basically can enchant our weapon to be a magic weapon. Um, I like it. It's a +1. I still think there was more unique flavor to the Eldritch Knight fighter, or the Eldritch Knight that had the kind of summon the weapon to their hand. That was a really cool, unique thing. That was a cool flavor option. Enchant weapon is obviously much more mechanically strong. And then we have spell multi-attack at 7th level. When you use your multi-attack class feature to make multiple attacks with the attack action, remember you get that at level 5. You can replace one of those attacks by casting a cantrip with a casting time of 1 action. All right, this is good. This is kind of similar to what we see with the updated Blade Singer rules that we had in Tasha's Cauldron, where essentially their multi-attack allows them to replace one of their multi-attacks with a cantrip. So you could still make a singular attack and use a cantrip. I like that. That's very good. It's a good use of that ability. I'm on board. All right. Next up, we have Weapon Master, which is going to be our other subclass here. Most fighters feel a deep connection to their weapons. For them, a favorite bow or blade is a natural extension of their body. So we have 2 features here. We have Mastery at level 3. Choose 3 simple or martial weapons with which you have proficiency. You have mastered the use of those 3 weapons. Once per turn, when you roll damage for an attack with a weapon you have mastered, you can re-roll one of the weapon's damage dice and choose either result. Okay, super simple and useful thing. It is once per turn, but still useful. And then you get stunts. So this is kind of like your battle master fighter. All right, stunts. You learn 3 stunts from the options listed in this section and gain a special resource called Stunt Points. You gain a number of Stunt Points equal to your proficiency bonus +1. To perform a stunt, you must spend the required amount of Stunt Points. The costs are listed for each one. You regain any Stunt Points expended when you finish a short or long rest. When you first choose this discipline, you learn 3 stunts from the list. To choose a stunt, you must be wielding a weapon you have mastered that matches the weapon type listed in the stunt's description. You can only ever use 1 stunt per turn. Learn an additional stunt of your choice at 7th level. Each time you learn a new stunt, you can replace one, and it uses your strength or dexterity modifier for any saving throws. So we have Arcane Strike, which is a 1-point cost that requires a 2-handed weapon that deals slashing damage. When you successfully deal damage with a weapon attack, you can also deal an additional half that amount of damage to a different target within 5 feet. Some of these we've already seen in the Battle Master, but we'll just keep going. Cheap Shot requires a melee weapon, 1 point. When you successfully hit a target with a melee weapon as part of the attack action, you can immediately make an unarmed strike against that target as part of the same attack action. So that is separate from like a secondary attack. So you could hit somebody and then also give them a quick punch. I like that. Hobbling Strike, 1 point. When you successfully hit a creature with a weapon as part of the attack action, you can choose to forego dealing damage with the attack to instead reduce the target's movement speed by half. Again, this works with ranged weapons as well. It doesn't specify. Make it count. When you take the attack action, you can make a single weapon attack with a +10 to the attack roll. You can't make additional attacks as part of that attack action, even if you have multi-attack. So just basically giving you a +10 to the attack roll to make sure this one hits, but you don't get to make multiple attacks. I like that. Kind of reminds me of the old True Strike. Parry requires a melee weapon. When a creature you can see within 5 feet of you hits you with a weapon attack, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage by a d10 plus your proficiency bonus. Riposte requires a melee weapon with the heavy property. Again, these are all 1 point so far. When a creature you can see within 5 feet of you misses you with a weapon attack, you can use your reaction to make a single melee attack against that creature. Requires a melee weapon without the heavy property. My mistake. Run Through requires a weapon that deals piercing damage. I like that we're seeing unique options based on the damage type, right? So a piercing kind of rapier spear will be different than something like a hammer or battle axe. When you successfully deal damage with a weapon attack, you can also deal an additional half the amount of damage to a different target you can see within 5 feet of the original target. Again, we have Arcane Strike, kind of hitting like a swing arc as Run Through, kind of stabbing through. I like the nuance of that. Shifting Strike requires a melee weapon that deals slashing damage. When you successfully hit a creature with a weapon as part of the attack action, you can immediately move to a different unoccupied space within 5 feet of that target. It doesn't count against the normal movement on your turn. doesn't specify that it doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. I feel like that should be written into there, where you're kind of like using the momentum to move you. I like that. Sweep the leg, solid move always. When you successfully hit a creature of requires a melee weapon. When you successfully hit a creature of no larger than one size category above you with a melee weapon, as part of the attack action, you could attempt to knock them prone. They must succeed on a strength saving throw or fall prone. Behind the curtain, we intend to add even more choices to the stunt list as playtesting continues, so make sure to let us know what kinds of weapon-based stunts you want to see in future packets. So I want something to, like, I would love, these are obviously very specific to, like, broader themes of weapons, right? Weapons that deal slashing damage, weapons that aren't heavy damage, weapons that do piercing damage. I would love to see, like, requires use of a whip, and it's like a grappling strike where you could pull somebody closer, pull a weapon out of their hand, and it's like specific to that weapon. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if that's too much for that, but let me know what your thoughts are. Would you want to see specific weapons, right? A thing you could do with a whip and like a specific thing you could do with a lance, right? Stuff like that. I think there should be some in here tied to shields too, right? That could be a cool one. And then we have Deadly Flourish at 7th level. You have mastered critical hits on a 19 or 20. So it looks like they might have taken the champion fighter and combined the champion fighter and the battle master fighter into the weapon master. And you know what? I'm honestly okay with that choice. Then we'll move on to our wizards, right? So we're going to have brand new wizard stuff here, as well as 2 subclasses for wizards. All right, nothing too crazy as far as the proficiencies and stuff at the start. It's all pretty much the same. All right. Moving on, we have Arcane Spellcasting. Here's our little table. As a student of Arcane Magic, you have a spellbook containing spells that show the first glimmerings of your true power. At first level, choose 3 cantrips of your choice from the Arcane spell list. You learn additional Arcane Circle cantrips of your choice at higher levels, as shown in the cantrips known column of the wizard progression table, which you can see right here. Spellbook, let's see. Containing 6 first level arcane spells, so that's pretty standard to the 5e stuff. Preparing and casting spells. Table shows how many spells you can cast. You cast one of these spells, you must expend a spell slot. To prepare the list of wizard spells, to do so, choose a number of wizard spells equal to from your spellbook, equal to your intelligence modifier plus your wizard level. Nothing, this is all basically base 5e. Nothing crazy there. You can change the list of prepared spells when you finish a long rest. Preparing a new list of spells requires time spent studying your spellbook and memorizing the incantations. Gestures you must make to cast a spell. At least 1 minute per spell ring for each. Oh, hang on. Hold on a second. You can change your list of prepared spells when you finish a long rest. Preparing a new list of spells requires time spent studying your spellbook and memorizing the incantations and gestures you must make to cast the spell. At least 1 minute per spell ring for each spell on your list. That sounds clunky to me. I don't like that. At least 1 minute per spell ring, right? These are the spell rings, right? All the way up to 8th level here. Possibly up to 9th level in theory. At least 1 minute per spell ring for each spell on your list. So if I have 5 first level spells prepared, then I need to spend 5 minutes. But if I have like a couple of first, a couple of second, I have to do the math for that. If I'm understanding that correctly, I don't like that at all. If I'm reading that right, that's dumb. I don't like that at all. It's unnecessarily complex, in my opinion. If I'm understanding that correctly, which I may not be, but that's how I read that. Preparing a new list of spells, you must, at least 1 minute per spell ring for each spell on your list. Yeah, I don't think I like that at all. All right. Use intelligence modifier. Ritual casting. You have access to a special type of long form called a ritual. You not need to prepare ritual spells to cast them. You not need to expend a spell slot when cast. And choose 2 at first level, choose 2 rituals of your choice from the Arcane Circle ritual list. You learn additional arcane rituals of your choice at higher levels, as shown in the rituals known column. Each ritual spell you learn must be of a ring for which you have spell slots, as shown on the wizard progression table. Rituals you learn do not count against the number of spells you learn at each level. Oh, that's interesting. That ritual spells are separate from your base spells. So if we go ahead and look at this, cantrips known, rituals known, and then spell slots. So I kind of like this a lot, where ritual spells are kind of a separate thing. And this might be a thing that, like, I wonder what if there are spells, like, you know how you have the concept of, like, let me cast Detect Magic, or I can cast it with a spell slot, or I can cast it as a ritual. I wonder if it will just be on just the ritual list, or meaning that Detect Magic is only a ritual, unless you have, like, something like a Warlock, maybe you can get around that. Yeah, so you learn additional arcane rituals. Each ritual spell you learn must be of a ring you have. It doesn't count against the number of spells you learn at each level. Interesting. Okay. We have your spellcasting focus. Each time you gain a wizard level, you can add 2 wizard spells of your choice to your spellbook for free. Each spell must be of a ring for which you have slots. So this is basically just like 5e. And then it has a little bit about here your spellbook. But I like that the rituals are separate from just spells that you learn from leveling up. The ability to find spells out in the world and copy them into your spellbook is one of the most unique elements of the wizard-based class, so make sure to keep your eye out for spellbooks and spell scrolls during your adventures. If it's been a few sessions since your character found or had an opportunity to purchase such treasures, ask your GM about creating more opportunities, to add spells to your repertoire. Arcane Recovery at level 1. Once per day when you finish a short rest, you can choose to expended spell slots to recover. The spell slots have a combined level equal to or your wizard level equal to or less than half your wizard level rounded up. So this is essentially the same as Arcane Recovery from base 5e. Magic Sense at level 2. I like where this is going. As an action, you can open your awareness to detect magical forces. Until the end of your next turn, you can know the location of any creatures with the ability to cast spells, ongoing spell effects, or magic items within 30 feet of you. If the magical effect is the result of an ongoing spell, you learn which school of magic the spell belongs to. This sense can penetrate most barriers, but is blocked by 1 foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, a thin sheet of lead, or 3 feet of wood or dirt. You can use this feature proficiency bonus +1. Get them back on a long rest. So basically, you have like the essentially detect magic just as a built-in magical sense. I wonder if all casters will have something like this. That would actually be pretty cool. You get your Arcane Tradition at 3rd and 7th level. This would be your subclasses, and then an improvement at 4th and 8th. So first up on the list, which I'm excited to see, is a Battle Mage, right? This is your battle-weary wizard, okay? Starting at 3rd level, whenever your wizard level would grant you an improvement, and you choose to gain a new talent, you can get from the martial or magic list, similar to what the other fighter option had. You can choose from both lists. I like that. Spell Ward. You can redirect a portion of your spellcasting energy into a defensive shield. When you cast an arcane spell of the first ring or higher, you can simultaneously weave a protective ward around yourself. While the ward is active, you gain the following benefits if you aren't wearing medium armor or heavy armor. You gain a bonus to your AC equal to your proficiency bonus, which is nice because that will start pretty powerful at level 3, but also scale all the way up to higher levels. You have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Your spell ward lasts for 1 minute. It ends early if you are knocked unconscious or if your turn ends and you haven't cast a spell of the first ring or higher since your last turn. You can also choose to dismiss your ward at any time as no action. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and get them back when you finish a long rest. I like this. This is a similar feature to what we saw with the Abjuration Wizard, but it's a little more powerful and it's not like clunky tracking of temporary hit points from your arcane ward. This is basically just you cast a spell. It's not tied to Abjuration only. You can just pull up this armor, which I like, which possibly makes it so you don't need something like mage armor. Although it does say you get a bonus to your AC equal to your proficiency bonus. So if mage armor still exists as a spell, you could stack both of these to potentially boost your AC even higher. And then we have Tactical Caster at 3rd level. Whenever you cast a spell that deals damage, you can choose yourself and any number of your allies to be immune to the damage caused by the spell. Very strong as a level third level ability, so you can just flat out have that. It's not like the Evocation Wizard that scales up over time. You just have this right out the gate. 7th level, you get Contingency Plan. Whenever you fail to hit a creature with a spell attack, you can use your reaction to attempt to redirect your spell towards a different target within the spell's range. You must make a new spell attack roll for that target. That's in both the Tactical Caster and Contingency Plan seem to be always on abilities with no limitations. That is very strong. I'd have to see what the rest of the other classes look like to really get an idea of how balanced this is in the grand scheme of things. But as it stands, Battle Mage is very strong. I like the defensive capabilities. It is limited, and you do have to continue to cast spells if you'd like to It's a first level spell or higher to keep your ward up and keep maintaining it, which I like. You have to keep funneling magic out there into the world to keep your ward up. But Tactical Caster in and of itself is very strong, as is Contingency Plan. I'm surprised Contingency Plan doesn't have a limitation, but I'm also okay with that. And then we also have Cantripped Adept, which is the other subclass. We ultimately chose to include the Cantripped Adept as an arcane tradition option in this packet because it originally appeared as a 5e subclass in Tome of Heroes. I'm going to play with an example that would confirm and consequently show how easy it is to convert existing 5e options to core fantasy roleplaying, which makes sense. They're showing you the option there because, again, as they said, Cantripped Adept was in the Tome of Heroes. So at 3rd level, you get Arcane Alacrity. Whenever you cast an arcane cantrip that has a casting time of 1 action, you can change that casting time to a bonus action for that casting. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and get them all back when you finish a long rest again. Make a bonus action cantrip, cast another cantrip. That's why you would probably do that. Cantrip Polymath. You gain 2 cantrips of your choice from any circle spell list. For you, these cantrips count as arcane circle cantrips and don't count against the number of cantrips you know. In addition, any cantrip you learn or cast from any other source, such as from a lineage or a talent, counts as an arcane cantrip for you. So that's interesting if you have them from a kind of a lineage or a heritage. And then again, you can get them from, say, like the divine list or whatever it is from like the cleric spells. You can cast them, but they all still count as arcane spells for you. And then at 7th level, you add your proficiency bonus to 1 damage roll of an arcane cantrip you can cast. Again, potent spellcasting, something we're familiar with seeing on other classes in 5e. So I think that Battle Mage is the clear winner for me in this out of the fight or the wizard subclasses. Cantrip Adept, though, also useful. Then we roll into talents here. We're about halfway through the document. Again, talents kind of replace feats here. Talents are divided into 3 categories: magic talents, martial talents, and technical talents. Your class typically determines which talent list you have access to. They're gained in 2 ways. You get them from your background, or you get them whenever you gain an improvement. It says the talents in this section marked with an asterisk originally appeared in Playtest Packet 1, but now have slight modifications. We've only included the talents that required slight modifications to clarify how they are used, but as with all Playtest materials, these are not the final versions. I want to point out, too, that if you missed that, the improvements for the different classes give you an increase in ability score of your choice by 1, and you choose a talent. So it stands right now, basically everything is a half feat, as it were. All right, so first up is our magical talents. So we have Mental Fortitude. Again, this was one that existed in the previous one that was adjusted. Once per long rest, when you fail an Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma save, you can choose to reroll the save and take the new result. You must declare your intention to reroll the save after you have learned you failed, but before the GM has resolved the consequences of the roll. If you are affected by an outgoing spell or magical effect that targets only you, due to failing an Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma save, you can repeat that save at the end of each of your turns, ending the effect on a success, even if the ongoing magical effect would not typically allow you to do so. A lot of you focused on confusing language of the first bullet of this talent in your playtest feedback, so we wanted to re-include it here in hopes of providing clarifications. The intention of the sentence is to make it clear that a player must use this feature immediately after learning they have failed the roll, but before the GM does all of the work of illustrating what a failed roll means in the game. It is our hope that this inclusion trains players to stay aware of their abilities, so the GM isn't put in a tough spot of calculating full damage, or reading off a long spell or long description, walking through the full consequences of narrative failure, then have a take it back when a player suddenly remembers they can use this feature after the fact. I still stand by my points about Mental Fortitude being funky here. The concept that they're referencing, that myself and many of you others probably pointed out, is that it says whenever you fail an Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma save, you can choose to re-roll and take the new result. And it says you must declare your intention to re-roll after you've learned that you failed. But again, the concept is failure of a save is what triggers this. So why would you need to, you already know you failed, but then I guess their concept, what they're saying is before the DM explains everything, but I already know I failed. I still don't like it. So I'm sticking to my guns on that one, but either way, it is what it is. Mental Prowess, your commitment to honing your mental capabilities has yielded results. Increase your Charisma, Intelligence, or Wisdom ability score by 1. You can't raise your ability score above 20 in this way. You can select this talent multiple times. So the concept here, I guess, with this Mental Prowess is that because improvements give you a +1 You could put that +1 into, say, intelligence, and then use mental prowess, and then also put that other +1 into intelligence to allow you to have +2 to intelligence if you wanted. Then we have a ritualist, which requires spellcasting. When you gain this talent, you also gain a ritual book, which contains the rituals you know. To cast a ritual spell, you must have your ritual book in hand. Choose one of the circles of magic: arcane, divine, primordial, or weird. You must choose your ritual from that circle's ritual list. Regardless of which spells you choose, you can use your normal spellcasting ability modifier for these spells. When you first gain your ritual book, you add one ritual of each spell ring you have already unlocked via your spellcasting class. For example, a bard that selects this talent at 4th level has spell slots for the first and second ring, so they would add one first ring ritual and one second ring ritual to their book. Each time you gain access to a new ring of spells by gaining a level in your spellcasting class, you add one new ritual spell to your book. Okay, so that just gives you more ritual casting. School specialization. This was in the original one. It was adjusted. Choose one of the schools of magic. You gain the following benefits. Whenever you cast a spell from that school that requires you to make an attack roll, add +1 to it. Whenever you cast a spell from a school that requires a target to make a save versus your spell save DC, the DC goes up by 1. If you use a spell book to cast spells, the golden time you must spend to copy a spell into your spell book is halved. You can select this multiple times, but choose a different school of magic each time. That's our magical ones. Now we're on to our martial talents. We have Artillerist at strength score of 13 or higher. You ignore the loading property of simple and martial weapons with which you are proficient. This potentially goes beyond just crossbows. And you have advantage on attack rolls made with siege weapons or other projectile launching objects you operate. Your GM has the final say on whether an object falls into this category. We have hand-to-hand here. You are proficient with your unarmed strikes. Your unarmed strikes deal bludgeoning damage equal to a d6 plus your strength, and you have advantage on ability checks made to initiate or escape a grapple. It says characters created using core fantasy role-playing are not all automatically proficient with unarmed strikes. Okay, so this is something different from 5e, which is a deviation from the 5e rules. This change has a variety of mechanical implications, like giving greater value to selecting a talent like hand-to-hand, but ultimately the change was made for narrative reasons. After all, how many people do you know who could throw a great punch with 0 instruction or training? A character without proficiency in unarmed strikes no longer gets to add their proficiency bonus when they make a melee attack roll with an unarmed strike. If you are not proficient with unarmed strikes, a successful attack with an unarmed strike still deals bludgeoning damage equal to 1 plus your strength mod. Okay, so I actually kind of like this. It also would make something like a monk, who more than likely will have proficiency with unarmed strikes, a little more unique in that they're better at punching than your average person, which is 100% a true thing, right? If you've never boxed or played around with any of that kind of stuff, there is a science to throwing a punch that's a little bit different than, like, you might think you know how to throw a punch, but there is actually science and math into throwing a punch to get the most impact out of it, to not break your wrist, to not hurt yourself, and turn your fingers, and know how to do things the right way. So it makes sense that it is, in fact, a trained skill, which also, again, leans credence to something like hand-to-hand. Physical prowess is the same thing we had for mental prowess, again, strength, dex, or con. And we move into our technical talents. Touch of luck. I was just wondering if we were going to get like a lucky analog here. You gain the following benefits. Whenever you would gain a luck point as a result of failing an attack roll or save, you instead gain 2 luck points. And if you have 5 luck points and would gain a 6 luck point, your luck point total reset to a d4 plus 1. So you basically could potentially go to reset it and then still have the same amount. While we understand you won't be able to select Touch of Luck talent if you are strictly using the content presented in this packet, we still wanted to share it to preview how we're thinking about using it in the future, right? Because technically, this is a technical talent reserved for things probably more like your bards and your rogues and stuff, maybe your rangers. The classes here, the wizard and the fighter, don't have access to technical talents, so you technically wouldn't be able to use this. But it's useful because if you did want to try to playtest their luck mechanic and you happen to have, say, like Lucky as an option for you, you could use Touch of Luck here to replace Lucky on your character to get you an idea. All right, let's move into spellcasting. Here is our ring system, which is what I was talking about, right? These are basically what we're using to replace spell levels 1st through 9th ring. It says, this section includes a mix of new material woven with sections of the spellcasting rules that originally appeared in the SRD 5.1. We chose to include SRD sections in here for ease of use during playtesting, but as with all playtesting material, this is not guaranteed to be how the spellcasting rules will appear in the final version of the game. All right, so Circles of Magic. Every time a caster produces a spell, they integrate their personal ability with the energy contained within a circle of magic. The Arcane Circle of Magic draws its power from the manipulation of measurable forces that govern material reality, including forces like heat, space, and gravity. All right, this is showing again arcane spellcasting separate from primordial, weird, or divine. Okay, arcane magic is governed by an extensive set of rules and calculations that make it highly complex. The tools that define arcane magical workings are varied and often highly personal to the arcane caster. Common tools includes runes, recitation, hand gestures, but anything that engages the senses can be used. Conversion. When converting standard 5th edition spells into the circles of magic, here are the qualities that may indicate a spell that belongs in the arcane circle. The spell detects, suppresses, ends, or otherwise interacts with mechanical aspects of spellcasting. The spell harnesses elemental energy, acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. The spell interacts with the five senses, whether to fool them or to extend their capabilities, right? So this is illusions, things of that nature. The Divine Circle. Okay, we're going to get all of them here. Divine Caster can imbue a dying creature with the will to live again. Harnessing magic from this circle requires unwavering devotion, hyper-awareness of others, and belief that you are making the world a better place. It's just accessible for a caster who acts out of devotion to a particular community, an evil code is set forth by a cult, or any similarly compelling source. When converting a standard 5th edition spells into the circle of magic, here's what would go for divine. Spell specifically interacts with another creature's life force, whether to heal or harm. It harnesses radiant or necrotic energy. The spell specifies interactions with a deity or includes the words faith in the description. I'm just going to skip ahead to the description parts of these. So for primordial, it's when converting 5e, these are what gives you primordial. It alters or enhances a creature's biological characteristics. The spell specifically interacts with plants or beasts, or the spell replicates an effect that could theoretically occur as a natural phenomenon, a lightning strike, an earthquake, stuff like that. And then weird, it summons a creature from a different plane or realm of existence. The spell harnesses energy that is not elemental in nature. The spell allows travel between different planes of existence. All right. Every spell is categorized into a ring labeled from 1st to 9th. A spell's ring indicates both the energy required to fuel the spell and the measure of effect it has on reality. Like the trunk of a tree, the rings of magic encircle one another. A novice spellcaster starts at the center of the circle with access only to the first ring. The further a ring is from the center, the higher powerful the spell is. Typically, a spellcaster must be at least 17th level before they can wield 9th level spells and the final ring. While the caster can know many spells from a specific and prepare a specific number, these abilities are useless unless they have spell slots, essentially. An abstraction of the amount of energy a caster is capable of expending to fuel spells from the different rings of magic. Each spellcasting class includes a table showing how many spell slots. As you increase in power, you gain the ability or the energy to cast spells from higher rings, and the energy to cast more spells from lower rings. To replenish spell slots, you must complete a short or long rest. Each class specifies which type of rest and how many slots are regained. This rest represents the time needed to recover from the immense toll of spellcasting on your body and mind. All right, so they are saying potentially some of them will come back on a short rest. And you know what? I want to go up and look because we didn't actually read into that because we just assumed long rest. So let's go ahead and see. For our spell blade, let's see. You regain all spell slots when you finish a long rest. All right, we're just checking because you never know, right? We want to make sure we check that out just to be sure. Let's see. Preparing and casting spells. You get them all back when you finish a long rest. I'm assuming that was tied to something like the Warlock, but I just wanted to make sure before I said anything. All right, moving on. Sorry, as we scroll down here, we got to get ahead a little bit more. All right. Casting at higher rings. Some spells allow a caster to expend their higher level spell slots to empower them from beyond its typical effects. For example, the spell Magic Missile is an arcane spell from the first ring. However, Magic Missile allows a caster to expend a second ring to create 4 missiles, a third ring to create 5, and so on. Okay. We have our Schools of Magic. Nothing's changed there. And then known spells. A spellcaster must be extremely familiar with a spell or process to be imbued with a spell casted. Each spellcasting class solve this problem by a familiarity differently. For example, a wizard keeps a catalog in a spell book. On the other hand, a sorcerer innately creates their spells, so they have a much smaller list of spells known and cannot add to it until they increase in level. Your character class defines how many spells you know and can potentially learn as you gain more levels. I wonder if there'll be more slots and things tied to different classes. That could be an interesting concept. I'm sure they're going to keep it the same to be similar to 5e, but either way, regardless of how many spells you know, some casters are limited. A prepared spell is defined as one you cast very quickly without reading extensively or setting up complicated ritual elements. Casting spells in the heat of battle or to protect from sudden danger requires a caster to have prepared the spell ahead of time. Due to the intense level of mental fortitude necessary to enact even one spell, the number of spells you can prepare at any one time is limited, though there are exceptions. Some spellcasters, such as clerics and wizards, must prepare all their spells ahead of time through study or meditation. Other classes, like the bard and sorcerer, do not prepare spells at all. Their spell list is known to them, and their prepared spell lists are the same. Okay? Cantrips. Some classes, like the wizard, have access to a special type of spell called a cantrip. It's a spell that can be cast without using a spell slot, without being prepared in advance. Repeated practice has fixed the spell in the caster's mind and infuses them. Their spellcasting ring is 0. A character class defines whether you have access to cantrips and how many cantrips you have, at each class level. Then it says rituals. Ritual spells are uniquely powerful magic that takes 1 minute or longer to cast. Like normal spells, a caster can only learn ritual spells associated with the circle of magic. Ritual spells don't expend spell slots like normal spells, which means ritual spells can't be cast at higher levels. Otherwise, ritual spells follow those normal spellcasting rules. Your class defines whether you have access to it. Behind the curtain, ritual spells have been altered from the way they appeared in 5th edition to clarify how and when they should be used. By placing spells with no longer casting times into a separate category, we're emphasizing that ritual spells are not meant to be used in combat and are encouraging players to think of them as tools to aid with exploration and social encounters. That makes sense, kind of separating them out. I get it. Casting in armor. Because of the mental focus, you must be proficient with armor you're wearing to cast a spell. Okay, that's fine. The effects of different spells add together while the durations of spells overlap. For example, if 2 wizards cast mage armor on the same target, the target gains the spell's benefit only once. They don't get multiple benefits. Okay. Elements of a spell, casting time. A spell with a bonus action is incredibly fast. You must use a bonus action on your turn to cast a spell, provided you haven't already taken a bonus action this turn. If you use your bonus action to cast a spell from the first ring or higher on your turn, you can't use your action to cast a spell from the first ring or higher during the same turn. Player wisdom. The spell action economy rules are written to prevent characters from using their action and bonus action to cast spells from the first ring or higher on the same turn. However, if your class gives you access to cantrips, you can potentially cast both a cantrip and a first level spell or higher on the same turn. Okay, so that's what I thought. This is a little bit different than base 5e, potentially. No, I guess it's about the same. If you use your bonus action to cast a spell from the first ring or higher on your turn, you can't use your bonus action to cast a spell from the first ring or higher. Yeah, so that kind of tracks, right? So if you have a bonus action spell, the only other thing you could cast is a cantrip. So it says there, if your class gives you access to cantrips, you can potentially cast both a cantrip and a first level or higher spell on the same turn. Some spells can be cast as a reaction. Since reactions are not taken during your turn, casting spells as a reaction does not interfere with the number of spells you can cast on your turn. Again, certain times you have to concentrate on them if they take longer. Range. The target of a spell must be within the spell's range. Nothing crazy there. Area of effect. Spell's description specifies its area of effect, which typically is 1 to 5 different shapes: cone, cube, cylinder, line, or sphere. And then it just describes them. Okay. Components, variable somatic material. Nothing too crazy there. Duration, instantaneous, it just happens. Concentration, let's see if this is different. Some spells require you to maintain concentration to keep them active. If you lose concentration, such a spell ends. If a spell must be maintained with concentration, that fact is denoted in its duration entry, and the spell specifies how long you can concentrate on it. You can end concentration at any time for no action. Normal activity, such as moving and attacking, doesn't interfere with concentration. The following factors can break it. Casting another spell that requires concentration. You lose concentration on a spell if you cast another spell that casts concentration. You can't concentrate on 2 spells at once. Taking damage. Whenever you take damage while you're concentrating, you must make a Constitution saving throw to maintain your concentration. The DC equals 10 or half the damage you take, whichever number is higher. If you take damage from multiple sources, such as an arrow or dragon's breath, you make separate saves. If you lose concentration, if you're incapacitated, or if you die. Okay, so that's all the same. Description: targets. A spell tells you whether the target's creature, objects, or a point of origin. Okay. Clear path to the target. To target something, you must have a clear path to it, so it can't be behind total cover. If you place an area of effect at one point, you can't see an obstruction, such as a wall is in between you and the point of origin. The point of origin comes into being on the near side of the obstruction. If the spell targets a creature of your choice, you can choose yourself. Spell saves, spell attack rolls. All right, nothing crazy. That's all standard stuff. And then we can get to the lists here. So the Arcane Circle spells. The following spells are available to casters that draw power from the Arcane Circle. Spells that appear with an asterisk name appear in their entirety in the spell description section in this particular document. So cantrips: Acid Splash, Chill Touch, Dancing Lights, Firebolt, Light, Mage Hand, Mending, Message. Nothing crazy. That's what we'd all expect, right? First ring: Burning Hands, Charm Person, Color Spray, Comprehend Languages, Detect Magic, Disguise Self, Expeditious Retreat, blah, 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 blah. So we have Mage Armor and Magic Missile. They have asterisks next to them. We'll take a look at that. Okay, Protection from Evil, Good, Shield, Silent Image. All right. Second ring, Acid Arrow, Alter Self. Yeah, these are all pretty standard stuff I'd expect to see on an arcane list. Third ring, Blink, Counterspell, Fireball, Lightning Bolt. All right, nothing crazy. Then we have Arcane Rituals. The following... Oh, you know what? That's what I wanted to look at, is Detect Magic. It is a first ring spell. So you can get it to cast it with a spell slot. But interestingly enough, Identify is listed as a ritual. So these are... The following spells are available to casters that draw power from the Arcane Circle. Note that spells in the core fantasy role-playing are either ritual spells or not ritual spells. Okay, that was my point, right? You can't have something that's on both. So, only ritual spells: Alarm, Create Familiar, Identify, Illusory Script, Unseen Servant, Arcane Lock, Arcanist Magic Aura, Magic Mouth, Animate Dead, Clairvoyance, Glyph of Warding, Magic Circle, Phantom Steed, Tiny Hut. Right? Going on to... I like the differentiation here in that, like, these are clearly not supposed to be things you're using in combat. These are things to be like part of exploration or done in preparation outside of combat. And we have spell descriptions. All right. To help us focus this playtest, we have decided to intentionally not include the rewritten description of every spell listed in this packet. We've only included a small sample of full spell descriptions to showcase examples of what reworked spells could look like. Please note, just because a spell appears with modifications does not mean we're tinkering with the way it works. We fully intend to dig into developing individual spells as soon as we know how you feel about the big picture alterations to spellcasting. The spells included in this packet are all the spells that appear in this SRD 5.1. This is an intentional choice to help focus the playtest. All right. So comprehend languages here, which is a non-ritual spell here. Okay. Let's see. Casting time in action. You understand any language you hear or read for the duration. You understand the literal meaning of any spoken language that you hear. You also understand any written... basically it says behind the curtain. Note this spell is no longer castable as a ritual. Okay. So that's kind of the main difference here. Detect magic. No longer castable as a ritual either. For the duration, you sense the presence of magic within 30 feet of you. If you sense magic in this way, you can use your action to see a faint aura. The spell can penetrate most barriers. Okay. Mage armor. All right, this has changed. Let's see. I think 8 hours. Defensive magical ward surrounds one willing creature you touch. When the creature is not wearing armor, they gain a +3 bonus to AC. Otherwise, the ward has no effect. You can choose to end this spell early by expending an action. Okay, so rather than setting your armor class at 13 plus your dex mod, it just gives you a +3 bonus to AC. Now, this is very interesting. So it is a non-concentration 8-hour spell, and it adds a +3 bonus to AC. So in theory, as far as I could tell, you could use Mage Armor and the Battle Mage's Spell Ward, because they both just add to your AC, effectively giving you a pretty substantial increase to your AC if you were to cast both. This also means you could cast Mage Armor on something like, assuming Monk turns out to be the same way with unarmored defense, you could cast Mage Armor on a Monk and just add +3 to their AC. Okay, you can choose to end the spell early by spending an action to mentally unravel the ward. So I think I like this change to Mage Armor. I think this is pretty solid for people that don't have like a super high or the ability to wear armor. It's fundamentally likely going to be similar in a lot of ways, but I like it. Magic Missile also been changed here. You create 3 darts that hit a creature of your choice within range. You can choose whether that dart hits the same creature or different creatures. Each dart deals a d4 plus 1 force damage. When you cast this spell slot for a second ring or higher, the spell creates an additional dart for each ring beyond first. I'm not really sure why they included that. It seems to be the same to me. 3 darts that hit each creature of your choice within range. Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same. You can choose whether it hits the same creature or different creatures. A d4 plus 1 force damage. When you cast this spell using a spell slot of second ring or higher, it adds an additional dart. Okay. Create Familiar is different, though. Let's take a look at that. This is the last page. Ritual time of 1 hour. It does require a 10 gold piece suitable vessel. As part of this ritual, you imbue your chosen vessel with a spark of your own life force to create an arcane familiar. It assumes the form of one of the following options: bat, cat, crab, frog, hawk, lizard, octopus, owl, poisonous snake, quipper, rat, raven, seahorse, spider, or weasel. Again, this is similar to what's existing in the existing Find Familiar spell. Upon completion of the ritual, your familiar appears in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of you. As the statistics of the chosen form, though its creature changes to construct instead of beast. When your familiar first appears, your hit point maximum decreases by 1. If you permanently dismiss your familiar or is otherwise permanently destroyed, your hit point maximum returns to normal. This reduction can't be offset by any means as long as your familiar lives. Communicating. While your familiar is on the same plane or realm of existence as you, it can magically convey what it sees or senses to you, and you can communicate it with telepathically. It doesn't seem any distance. Same plane. Controlling. Your familiar acts independently of you, but it always obeys your commands. In combat, it rolls its own initiative and acts on its own turn. It can't attack, but it can't take other actions as normal. When you cast a spell with a range of touch, your familiar can deliver the spell as if it had cast the spell. It must be within 100 feet of you to do so, and it uses its reaction. It must use its reaction to deliver the spell when you cast it. If the spell requires an attack roll, you use your spell attack modifier. As an action, you can touch your familiar to reincorporate it into your body. When you do so, it melds into your skin where it awaits to be summoned. While it is incorporated, you can use an action to expel it from your body, causing it to appear in a space within 5 feet of you and destroying. If it drops to 0 hit points, its body is instantly destroyed, but if you still live, your familiar regrows a new body in 1 hour, regaining all of its hit points and becoming active again. The new body appears in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of you. If you die, your familiar is permanently destroyed, and the ritual must be performed again to create a new familiar. At any time, you can use your action to permanently dismiss your familiar, which instantly destroys it. You can only have one at a time. If you attempt to create another one, the first one fails. So it is just like a slightly improved version of Find Familiar in a lot of ways to me. I like it's interesting that it reduces your maximum hit points. It means there's a little bit of a trade-off as opposed to just kind of being flat out free. Again, 1 hit point's not a big deal. Maybe at lower levels it is. I like the simplicity of how to communicate with it is fine. Excuse me. And then again, controlling it's pretty simplistic, and I like that even if it is killed, it pops back into your body and comes back into an hour, basically meaning you don't need to recast the spell. So there you go, folks. That is a run through of the entirety of Project Black Flag Playtest Packet number 2. I'm curious what your thoughts are. So I think I like the luck point system, a little bit different than the inspiration system. I like that it can function as inspiration, but it has a little more utility there. So I'm a fan. I like that. The changes to the fighter, I think Last Stand is better than Second Wind in that it's like a reactionary thing that you do when you would take damage. I like that. I like the martial actions, although I do agree that I feel like there should be a one-handed weapon option for offense as opposed to just using a shield. I like that they kept Action Surge, didn't change it. I also like the changes to Improvement in that it basically gives you a +1 to an ability and you also get a talent. And then you could choose to just take a talent that gives you a +1. It does feel a little clunky though that it doesn't let you, like as a martial character, I couldn't take a +1 to my wisdom if I wanted to, unless I happen to have the opportunity to take magical feats. That seems just like unnecessary limiting, but either way. The spell blade is interesting, right? You do get access to some cool spells. I like that you're able to choose magic lists, the magic list for your talents. I think enchant weapon, like I said, mechanically superior to the existing Eldritch Knight fighter ability to summon a weapon to your hand, but the existing Eldritch Knight fighter one's a little more flavorful. And then I think spell multi attack is perfect. That's exactly what I think they should have done to Eldritch Knight. So I appreciate that. And Weapon Master, I like quite a bit. And then it's kind of a combination of champion and battle master. And I like that they flat out said they're going to include more stunt options. I also think it's interesting that they said they could take possibly more than one stunt point, but every option they present to you here only uses one stunt point. I'm curious what something that uses multiple stunt points would look like. And then the wizard, pretty simple. I like the changes. I like the separation of ritual magic from base magic. I think that's actually probably my favorite magical thing that we've seen, other than the concept of multiple spell lists, which seems to be where one D&D was going as well, and I'm okay with that, separating those out. But I like the separation of ritual magic from base magic. I think that's actually a very nice and smart call. I do appreciate that probably the most. I like that wizards get this magic sensibility, which is essentially like a freebie detect magic that they just have for being a wizard. I do feel like every arcane caster, or possibly every spellcaster, should have this magic sensibility where like you can use and wield magic. You should be able to sense when magic is around. I think battle mage is very strong, like seriously strong with what it can and can't do. It could be very survivable. The fact that you add your proficiency bonus to your AC and that new mage armor would also stack with that, I think is pretty interesting. And then again, the fact that you can just flat out make your allies immune to your spell damage as well as redirect a missed attack with no limitations. If I was going to play it, I'd probably play a battle mage right now as it stands because I like a lot of what I see, but I also like that the cantrip adept, it kind of feels like an arcane sort of domain cleric in that like I'm a wizard, but I can also possibly get access to something like a cleric's cantrips, which I like. I liked seeing the talents, and they kind of showed us some of the ones that they changed. I still stand by my thoughts on mental fortitude being funky, and I don't like the wording. Ritualist makes a lot more sense and is a lot more useful now based on the adjustments to the way ritual spells are handled. School specialization, I also really like. I like the clarification that hand to hand, that in Project Black Flag, you're not automatically proficient with unarmed strikes. I like that. I like the adjustments to Touch of Luck. I think that's an interesting mechanic there. And then, did we need to change spell levels to arcane rings? No. But, whatever. It's just a way to differentiate your spellcasting system from the Wizards of the Coast system. Fine with that. I do like that Project Black Flag has cantrips are now preparable, so you can swap those out. But I think that might be a trade off for the fact that rituals are separate and on a separate list. I do appreciate that. I do feel like all spellcasters, at least, inherent spellcasters, should have ritual casting because I feel like, as the way things are going with Project Black Flag, things like Rangers and Paladins would not have rituals, but I feel like they should have them. And then I like the changes to the couple of spells that I saw. I like the things that if it's a ritual spell, it is not a castable spell, and vice versa. I like the new mage armor. I can't actually see any difference from magic missile to what it was, so I'm curious what the difference was there. And I like the adjustment to find familiar. I think it makes it feel a little more, you feel a little more invested in it, and then you lose a little bit of hit points. It's nothing crazy, but I just like it overall. So I'm curious because now you actually have the opportunity to use the stuff from the last playtest packet to choose a lineage and a heritage, and now at least play up to level 8 with these fighter or wizard options. What do you think about this? Are you excited about Project Black Flag based on this? Has it kind of where does it, because I know some people were really turned off when they heard that it was going to be like an adjustment to 5e. I heard a lot of people were not happy about what they saw from the playtest packet 1. I'm liking what I'm seeing in playtest packet 2, but I'm curious what your thoughts are. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I'll see you all next time.